Alright, good evening folks, it's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to another short war video, and today we have very big news coming from pretty much every region around the world. First off, in Russia, Putin has now sent the former defense minister Shoigu down to Iran for some unknown reason to meet with Iranian officials amidst the escalations happening in the Middle East. We're also hearing as well of some attacks on Russian sites by the Ukrainians. We're also hearing that Israel is gearing up for an attack that could come sometime today, according to US intelligence, and also we're hearing that North Korea is putting a ton of ballistic missiles on the border with South Korea, and also there's a global stock market crash happening as we speak. So with that, we're jumping into our first article of the day, which goes to Nexta. And in this post right here, we can see that Russia is stepping into the Middle East conflict, and we can see right here that it says the former Russian defense minister Shoigu has arrived in Iran, where he will meet with the president, the secretary of the Supreme National Security Council, and the head of the general staff, and all of this is taking place against the backdrop of escalating tensions in the Middle East and the threat of war between Israel, Iran, and Lebanon. So this is not good whatsoever, and also it's surprising to see Shoigu out here once again because he was just ousted by Putin himself and replaced with a new defense minister, and now Shoigu is being sent down to Iran to do Putin's bidding. And also another telling sign that Russia might be getting involved in the Middle East on the Iranian side is we keep seeing IL-76 cargo planes arriving in Tehran, not just one of them, but actually a couple of them. So my hunch is that Russia is once again arming Iran to get ready to fight Israel, the same way that the US is arming Israel to fight Iran. So we could be looking at somewhat of a proxy war happening here if a war does break out between Iran and also Israel. So Shoigu's visit is indicative that the Russians are indeed behind Iran's efforts. But with that, we're jumping into our next article here, and this one goes to Jason J. Smart. And also, y'all might remember a couple of days ago, we showed satellite footage of the disaster and the strike that happened at the Russian Morzovsk airfield, thanks to Ukrainian missiles and also drones attacking that airbase. The damage was very extensive, and specifically, you'll see right here in this photo, this is the area right here, the little square area where Russia was storing all their ammunition and also their munitions for their aircraft and also ground forces, and that area has been completely leveled. We saw in satellite footage a few days ago that it was flattened, and now even seeing the photo evidence as well, this is crazy to see. The Ukrainians did a number on that airfield. And with that, we're moving into our next article here, which goes to Max24, and we learned that last night there was an explosion at the Sovietskaya substation in Volgograd, Russia, and it caused a very major fire. You can see right here from the photo, there's the explosion right there in Volgograd. We're not sure really what caused the explosion. It could have been partisans or it could have been a Ukrainian attack of sorts, but indeed, this was a very large fire, and you can see it right here. It is burning right in the middle. So let's take a look at the video and see how big it was. So we've got no sound in this video, but as you can see, there's a large fire right there, kind of like we saw in the photos as well. So not much to see, but it does give you an idea of just how big the explosion was. And once again, more infrastructure being attacked inside of Russia, which is not good for the Russians, but it's very good for the Ukrainians. But with that, we're jumping into our next article here, which is going to go to Nexta. And switching back to our Israeli news real quick, we're learning that Israel is still considering a preemptive strike on Iran. And it says on the eve of the meeting of the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu with senior security officials, they discussed the possibility of a preemptive strike against Iran, and if an attack from its side is considered inevitable, and right now such a step is possible only if Israel receives intelligence confirming Tehran's intention to launch an attack, and we've been hearing rumors about a preemptive strike for actually days now. So far, Israel has not committed to doing so. In my humble opinion, I would say that if an attack is imminent from Iran, I think Israel would be wise to go ahead and do a preemptive strike to knock out some of these launch sites that will eventually probably overwhelm the Israeli defense systems. It'd probably be wise to go ahead and knock those out so that way the damage is not that severe on the mainland Israeli territory. So of course, it's up to Israel on this thing, and I think ultimately they probably will do it, but the timing is going to be the big question on this one. But with that, we're jumping into our next article here, and this one's going to go to Inside Geopolitics, and we're hearing about a lot of movement in Iran in the last 24 hours. First up, we're seeing military movement, including the IRGC, into Syrian territory. We're also seeing that the head of Russian Security Council is now in Iran. Also, the Iranian foreign minister met with foreign ambassadors in Tehran. Iran is now warning airlines about their airspace, and also Lebanon has received emergency medical equipment. And this very large volume of movement in Iran kind of does play into the idea that US intelligence is trying to put forward that the attack actually might come sometime today or maybe tonight in US time. So it looks like something might be happening, but once again, it's impossible to crystal ball what's happening in the Middle East. The situation is simply too volatile, and we might have little to no warning when something does does break out. So it's simply up to speculation at this point when it'll actually start. And with that, we're moving into our next article here, which goes to Insider Paper, and we're learning that Turkey is once again putting their feet into the fire. And we have a quote here from Turkish President Erdogan, once again bashing Israel. He says right here in a quote, "Those who applaud lies of today's Hitler, Netanyahu, will never be able to wash off the dark stain on their hands for the rest of their lives." And remember, this statement right here comes right on the heels of the Turkish president threatening to invade Israel in the future. So Erdogan is going off the rails, and basically this statement by Erdogan to me is code words for Erdogan wants to be ejected from the NATO alliance because it sounds like they're not very pro-Western anymore and they're going against our allies in the Middle East, which is obviously not good and not a smart move by Erdogan because it looks like he's deciding to side with Iran and also the forces which are really trying to mess with Israel really big league these days. So Erdogan is not on the right side of history right now. He's actually going the wrong direction. So we'll just have to wait and see if this continues and how the West is going to respond to it. But moving on from the silly news coming out of Turkey, we're moving into our next article here, which goes to Isa Hasni, who says U.S. Navy ships are being strategically placed across the Mideast as Israel braces for retaliation from Iran. And also real quick here, taking a look at the map to see where our deployments are in the Middle East, we can see right here the Roosevelt Carrier Strike Group is currently in the Gulf of Oman, right off the coast of, it looks like Saudi Arabia, so it's pretty close by. Also, we see the USS Roosevelt is up here in the Mediterranean, along with the Wasp Amphibious Ready Group, so we have a ton of assets around the region, and also we have been flying patrol flights and also surveillance flights in the area to get an idea of exactly what is happening. So if Iran decides to act up, they might get glassed depending on how bad the attack is on Israel, and certainly the US is in the region making their presence known to let Israel know that they're not standing alone and we're going to stand behind them. So a good show of force indeed, but I'm not sure if this is actually going to deter Iran, because right now the Iranian government's saying that they don't care if they start a regional war. They're simply interested in punishing Israel to their own demise. So this could go pretty sideways pretty quickly, depending on what Iran decides to do after the assassinations occurred on their pro-Hamas leadership. So not good whatsoever. But with that, we're jumping into our next article here, which goes to Nexta once again. And switching away from our Israeli news, we have some news coming out of the Korean Peninsula. And right now, we're learning that North Korea has handed over 250 launchers for their new tactical ballistic missiles to the border guards to put on the border with South Korea, and a ceremony with fireworks with Kim Jong-un's participation was held in Pyongyang to mark the occasion. So they always say when it rains it pours, and right now the dictators around the world are feeling very emboldened because of what's happening in Iran, also in Venezuela, and other places like, for example, Russia. All the dictators are feeling very gleeful right now, and they're ready to take everyone out. And right here in this photo, you can see here is Kim Jong-un shaking the hands with his military leadership, and also you can see right here, here are the launchers which are being handed over to the border guards to put on the border with South Korea. I really can't understate how serious this actually is. The story's not getting a lot of traction right now, but I suspect it'll be picked up probably by the mainstream media in a couple of days when they finally realize this is happening. But of course, we're on top of it right as it occurs. But this is not good whatsoever. The North Koreans are getting more aggressive toward South Korea, and this is not good for stability in the Korean Peninsula. So once again, Kim Jong-un is going off the rails. But with that, we're jumping into our next article, which goes to Rawls Alerts. And on the heels of all this instability around the world and also the fears of war and other factors, we're learning today of a global stock market crash happening all around the world in several different markets. Today, over almost $2 trillion have been wiped from the US stock market so far, and the market's not closed just yet when I made this video, and the NASDAQ has dropped over 1,000 points, and officials say that the NASDAQ has never been this low, not even intraday. So we're seeing a sell-off here in the United States, which is indicative of some serious problems on the horizon, and investors seem to be very scared according to what's happening in the world. But with that, we're jumping on to our next article, which goes to the Financial Times. And arguably, the sell-off that we're seeing in the United States was maybe sparked by what happened in Japan's stock market last night during our stream. Last night, we learned that Japanese stocks had the largest plunge in their history, and it was a sell-off that echoed across all Asian markets on Monday, and all the traders are bracing for global volatility from weak U.S. economic data, but I suspect that is not the main reason. But let me know in the comments down below what you think like it is. And also, we don't get political, by the way, so we're not going to jump into politics. We don't cover that, but we're covering the crash here, which seems to be motivated by fears of war, amongst other factors. So this is not good whatsoever. And in our next post here from B&O News, we can see that the Japan stock market fell over 4,000 points, marking its largest drop in history. So not good whatsoever, but the Japanese stock market was not the only one having trouble. I did not include this in our news articles in this video right here, but just for your information, the Taiwanese stock market is having trouble, and also the South Korean stock market had to halt trading due to the volatility in their markets. And of course, now we're seeing today that the US market is catching up to that news, and it looks like investors are freaking out. So not good with the economic situation around the world. And of course, we really don't cover economics very much on our channel, but we had to cover this one because it appears to be a historical drop in these global markets. So it's up to speculation, like I said, what is causing this, but let me know down in the comments below because I'm very curious to see what y'all think. And with that is actually our last piece of news for the day. So I hope you found today's video informative, and I'm sorry for all the negative news coming out today. It has really been quite a interesting day. The news is coming out quite rapidly, very fast, and it's not very positive. I'm being perfectly honest here. So we'll just have to see how this plays out throughout the week and see if it gets any better economically and also with the tensions rising around the world, and we'll have to see. But with that, if you did like the reporting in the video, even though it was somewhat stressful, please press the like button and also subscribe to the channel as well, and we'll keep you up to date on what's happening around the world. And also, be sure to support us on our Patreon page as well. And the link is in the description below for the Patreon, because we're largely crowdfunded by the viewers, and of course, every bit of support from you, the viewers, means a lot to us, and it helps us keep putting out these reports just like this one, and funding this crowdsourced news, just like we put out every single day. So with that, be sure to join us tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern for our next nightly war news stream, and of course, if something pops off in the Middle East anytime today or tomorrow, we will be jumping on our live stream immediately to cover those events as they happen. So with that, thank you all for watching, and bye-bye for now.